Initially, like, gymnastics and plans of competing in the Olympic Games just went out the window for me. And the thing I found the hardest in the lockdown was basically not having any structure. I really like having structure in my life, and I think having gymnastics, for 20 years of my life, one of the most important things it gave me was structure. I know that I knew my training the next day. I knew what I was going to be doing that week, that month. I knew the competition I was working up to. All my meals. When I'd go to bed, my sleep was all built around my training plan for the next day. And when that got taken away and we went into lockdown, like everybody else, I really struggled with not having that structure in my life. So initially, doing some training at home, it was about structuring my day around something. It had nothing to do with staying fit to do gymnastics, because I didn't know how long we were going to be in this pandemic, this lockdown at that point. Everything was new and fresh for everybody. I just trained 2 hours a day, and that was the first thing I had in my life in a 24-hour period. At that point, I could, kind of get some routine together with. So I would train at like 12 o'clock, and initially I'd do like an hour, and then I might do an hour and a half, and eventually, we ended up being months down the line in that lockdown. I ended up working up towards 2.5, 3 hours, and it was more of a view to get back into the gym rather than just trying to be something to almost look after my like physical and mental health at that time. But yeah, I stayed fit. I enjoyed it. I like solving problems, so doing different types of training. And literally, I was in my brother's bedroom at the time, and it was like it's a small room. There's not a lot of space, and every day I'd do my gymnastics warm up in there. I'd do my body tension, get upside down, do handstands, do conditioning, and I'd mix it up and do different bits. Every other day, I remember I'd do hill sprints up my hill where my family's house is, my mum and dad's house, and there'd be kind of neighbours looking outside thinking, what's this guy doing? Because there's no cars around, so I'd just sprint right up the middle of the hill. I was just doing anything I could, number one, just to keep me busy, because my mind was racing off in all different directions. So that was the first thing. And the second thing, just trying to stay fit in case if the gyms do open again, I want to be able to compete one more time. And I think that's where my focus really switched. It switched from, I want to try and make the Olympic team and go to the Olympics in 2020, because the Olympic Games, it became very clear quite quickly that it was just not going to happen. And it changed from that to becoming something that I just wanted to compete one more time. I wanted to have one more chance at doing a competition and feel that. And I think the lockdown for a lot of people gave everyone like time for pause to sit back and really like reflect on their life and where they're at, where they want to go in the future, what's important to them. And for me, I really missed the gym. I missed not being able to go into the gym and do gymnastics. Had nothing to do with trying to qualify for a team, get back on the British squad, win medals. It was none of that. I just missed going to the gym and the feeling of doing gymnastics. So yeah, that was really, really cool for me. And to be fair, I had found that at the start of 2020. Like I said, I was in a real positive place. I was enjoying just going to the gym and, just basically just putting all of my gymnastics in the hands of Sergey and saying, Sergey, just coach me. I'll do whatever you tell me to do. Like, I'm here to learn. And it was great, and I loved that experience, and I missed that relationship with Sergey while we were in the lockdown. So I would call him on the phone and check in with him, make sure he was doing all right and stuff. And once we got kind of like 3 months in, and it became quite clear that we'd be able to get back into the gym soon, it shifted a little bit. And I tried to really use my time in lockdown. So I remember doing pommel horse sessions, and I'd live stream them, and I'd get other gymnasts to come on and like do a Q&A with me. And I'd do that every Saturday morning, which was great. And I'd get loads of kids joining, because a lot of the kids at the time were doing Zoom sessions. So a lot of the clubs they'd join my live session and they'd follow along, which was amazing. It was brilliant. And it helped me as well, because it was really hard for me to go outside, sometimes it was raining on a Saturday morning, and do these mushroom circles, you basically do when you're a kid, when you're learning, but it was the only thing I could do to put some load on my joints. And that for me, whenever I've been injured and had time out of gymnastics, the hardest thing has always been pommel horse. And it's putting that load through like my elbows and my wrists. You can't replicate that really by doing any other apparatus. So if I had an injury, an upper body injury, when I came back, I always found it really difficult to get back onto the pommel horse. So that was great that I did have that piece of equipment to train on. And it gave me a lot of motivation. And, I think the last week of lockdown training was like week 16, I think. So I did 16 weeks in lockdown before I was allowed to get back in the gym. And what was difficult was that the guys that were on the GB team, they very quickly all got elite athlete exemption letters, which meant that they were allowed to go to the gym and train in the hopes of preparing for the Olympic Games in Tokyo.